Jeff from ArizonaHotHomestead. Today, we're talking about framing some windows and doors. I'm no expert. I kind of show you what mistakes were made and how I kind of corrected them. See you in a bit. Jeff from ArizonaHotHomestead here. Thanks for tuning in, folks. My voice sounds a little rough. It's because I've had a cold. If I'm coughing a little, I apologize. Cough just won't go away. So anyhow, on this build that we got, as you can kind of see behind, doors and windows need to be framed up. And I want to point out a couple things. What's interesting is when you have people helping you, they know what to do, but somehow you still end up making mistakes. But you know what? Those mistakes can be corrected. So, Concho, say hi. Hi. Yeah, Concho just came in and just bumped me and he wanted to say hi, I guess. I don't know. He was out chasing some rabbits. Anyhow, so let's take a look at that. So hopefully the glare isn't bothering us too much. So here's what we've got. This wall is a load-bearing wall. So it's real important that your header is good, or else you end up with sag right there in your door. But this 2x4 that I have here, I probably really should have went with a 2x6. I'm no expert at this stuff. I learned it through the internet and just experience. But let's just kind of look at the basics of it. What you end up having is this one here, which goes from the floor to the top plate. That's called a king stud. Not a queen stud, but a king stud. Then you have this one here, I'm calling it a header stud. It's going to go from the floor and it's going to go up to the header. Now, this here really is your header. This is kind of more of a spacer. See, here's what happened. That was done first, this was added later. When this got done, I looked at it afterwards and I said, wait a minute, something doesn't look right. Oh, hang on, let me let the dog outside. Alright, so I looked at this and I said, wait a minute, something isn't right. All I had was this on here. I'm like, well, this here still needs to go here because when you go to nail and screw this in, it's better to put it in this piece of wood here than this one. I'll show you why here in a second. But this one here is your true header. This is going to hold your weight. Reason being is because when this wood, if you take a 2x4 on its side like this, it will bend down more easily. But when it's like this, not only is it thicker, but it's less likely to bend this way. So you always want to flip them on their side. And then you want to continue your header stud straight up above it. And then 1 to 2, depending on how big, depending on how big your opening is. And then you have the same thing on the other side. Now, because we just put this in, all I had to do was just cut these boards here. So I just cut those, and I just used a reciprocating saw, a Ryobi reciprocating saw. And then I also used one of these. You can see it, the vibrating saw. These things are wonderful. That did most of the work. And then I just placed it in, dropped a couple nails on the corner, and then you can see there's a nail there and a nail up there. So that's how you fix it. That's the basics. Over here, the same kind of thing. You got your header stud, your king stud, and the same type of thing up above. If you indulge here, check this guy out. So when we were building this, our measurements were wrong, and we had to put a little spacer in. We put that spacer in, and we're like, that ain't gonna hold with darn. So then we had to go in with these other pieces here. This is a load-bearing wall, but it's not gonna be too much of a load. So, because 6 feet over, this one's really holding your main weight. So anyhow, on this window here, I did pretty much the same thing. You got your header stud coming up. This is just a sill plate. And this goes up, and this one I only did this because this is not so much of a weight bearing wall, plus this opening is much smaller, it's only 2 feet. Now what I should have, and I don't, and I probably should add it, I need to have a stud right there, and I need to have a stud right there. Wow, if I would have had that stud there, look at that, those nails would have gone right in that stud, huh? Whoops. Oh well. So I'll just have to cut those, put my board in, and then nail it onto the king stud. I doubled this one up here. This should be okay for this one here, but again, I really should have flipped this one on its side and done it like I did the doors. There's another door I've got. This one, when we did the rough opening, we went just a little too high, so we just put spacers in here. So if you end up doing your rough opening way too much, that's okay. You can just put spacers in there. That's all we did. Now see this spacer right here? That's just a little 1/2 inch OSB. That's what you use up here. So what you're doing is you're actually sandwiching, kind of like what this is. And all I did was just as spacers, just because the way this wall is done. So I've got, so this piece here is what is right there. So that looks the same, except you can use 2x6s or 2x8s or 10s or whatever. The bigger boards you use, the better. And this just so happened that I got 2 here. I think I did that so that that's 16 on center, that's 16 on center, and I just had a little piece in the middle. That way my insulation fits a little nicer. The only reason why this is like this is because the way this wall turned out, I needed to come up with something stable here, because this is where my door is going to, you know, the doorknob is going to latch onto. So I had to come up with something, and I was like that much off, so I just put a bunch of fillers in there. Actually, it ends up making it just a little bit stronger, doesn't it? That board's just to keep the mice out. Now here's one big mistake that's really going to matter. So we've got our king stud, we got a header stud, then we have the stud here supporting the sill plate. That sill plate should have went all the way over to there. Well, it didn't, so we just put another board there. That's going to be okay for the sill plate probably, but the header is where we run into a problem. Well, I've taped this in up here so you can see it better on this other side. See that header doesn't attach to anything but the window. This here is supposed to be the header stud. So what I'm going to do to fix this whole window here is, I forget the dimension, but I've got a board that will fit this, like a 2x10, 2x12, something like that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that reciprocating saw and that vibrating saw, and I'm going to cut that board right there. And then I'm going to cut it up there and knock those 2 boards out. Knock that one out, knock that one out, knock that one out, and I'm going to cut these 2 here and cut those 2 there. And then that header with the OSB in between will go right up in there, and this is at an angle, so it's shorter here than it is here. I don't know by how much, I don't remember. So I'll cut that 2x12 or whatever at a slight angle so it slides right in. And when it slides right in, it's going to look a lot like, let me show you this. It's going to look very similar to this here. Now this is my patio window. It's open. I'll just put a screen on it later. But see, here I have my header, and then I've got that one plate running across the top plate, and then I've got think that's a 2x8. And then I took another 2x4 and I literally cut it to just slide right in there. So it pretty much fills in the gap. That little bitty 1.5 inch gap up there, inch gap, that's not going to matter. So it's, what the goal is if weight were to come down on this, it's going to hit this, and then that really is going to hold it. This is like a 4 or 5 foot opening. So then I have boards covering this just to keep rain and snow from coming in right now. So you can't see that one. On this opening here, I need to still put a stud right there, because as you can see my header stud goes up to here. Now this one's a little different in the sense that this is a makeshift door. So I've got a king and I kind of have 2 headers. And the reason being is because my door is really just a metal screen door. One of these security metal screen doors. It's not really supposed to be for security, but it was pulled off of another house, so I figured that would be a good screen door for right here. So I'm rigging it up, and so you've got a couple of headers really, and this should be okay too, because this is not a weight-bearing wall. I put that there because not only is it such a big opening, that's the main reason why I put it like that, because it's such a large opening. But it's not a weight-bearing wall, but I think it looks cool actually. It will end up being covered, but now on this door here is not a weight-bearing wall, so all I did was I just did board here. I didn't put, for some reason, I didn't put the other, that other 2x4 down here for some reason. Now I have a, this is going to be the bathroom, but I have a pocket door. Now on this pocket door, we went with a large header here, that's a 2x6 there, and then here's kind of the plate underneath it. And then we just used all this here for spacers so that we could get the right height. Because what's interesting sometimes is when you're reading the instructions on, you know, your openings, that they call for a certain size, and then you cut it to that size and you're like, wait a minute, that's too big. Where the heck are they getting that? So I don't know. Like on these here, this is a universal door frame, so it fits up to an 84-inch doors. Well, these aren't 84-inch doors, so that's why that one I showed you earlier was so much bigger, and then we had to put spacers because we cut it for 84-inch. Then it dawned on us later, wait a minute, our doors are smaller than that. And the same thing happened here. This was cut to 84 inches. See if you can read this. 84 inches. So we had designed it to go 84 inches, and come to find out, well, that was too big for this. So we put spacers. So that's kind of how you can fix it when you screw up, and how it really should be. But again, you got your king stud, your header stud, and then a spacer stud, if you will. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully by looking at the framing that I did, maybe you don't make the same mistakes I did. But just know this, when you make the mistakes, you can fix it. So I better get to work on that one window and get that one fixed. But all the others I think are okay. So guess I'll catch you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you. Bye. Have fun.